All right, so my name's John. My name's Jonathan. I know it says Respondo on there. That's just a little handle that.
Your name is Respondo.
My name is Jonathan. I know on there it says Respondo. That's a handle that a friend of mine gave me over at my last job and kind of stuff. So I just put it on there. So what we're going to cover today is Python 101. Obviously, that's why we're all here today. All right, which version we're going to be covering? The version I'm talking about is not Python version specific. It's mostly the one-on-one stuff, the 101 stuff that you need to know about the actual program, about Python itself. So you could, even though the examples are going to be in Python 2, if you're running Python 3, most of the examples are basically print statements and loops. There's not really a lot of changes in the actual loop and the loop structure for version 2 to version 3, but for print statements, you just have to wrap that around parentheses because print is now a function. Okay? Also, for instance, raw input, when we get into the raw input section, in Python 3 it's called input. If you're using the web IDE, you're not going to be able to put input because you would have to run that through a command line. Okay? So, not that many big differences. If you go to the URL on the key differences, it'll give you a larger list of information to actually, so you can read through and find out the actual differences of Python 2 versus Python 3. Okay, but main things, just those parentheses around the print, that's going to be your biggest issue if you're actually learning Python for the first time. All right? And if you don't know which Python version you're running, run python-b, they'll print out the actual version that you're on, okay? Today, on my examples, I'm going to be using the Jupyter Notebook, okay? If you want to install Jupyter Notebook for yourself, there's a lot of little things here that I'm not going to be talking about, like pip or virtual environment. Those are pretty things more on an intermediate level, but to actually get through it, you could just run this section of code here, the virtual environment 101, Python 101. This basically creates a directory on wherever your current path is on your system of Python 101 and installs your Python module into that directory. Okay, and then when you activate it, it's running the actual Python script from that directory that's installed in this directory. All right? No, yeah.
So can I have a question?
Oh, sure.
So what are the benefits of creating a virtual environment over just installing it in your system?
Good question. So if you're running two different versions of Python on your system and you want to keep it separate and just run Python without a version number, you can actually create that virtual environment and specify which version of Python you're actually executing inside that little model of where it's going to be installed. All right. Again, this is a little bit of a higher learning curve for 101, but just to get your Jupyter installed, you just activate your virtual environment. This says, all right, I'm running the Python that's going to be inside this directory. All right, and then you're going to do pip install Jupyter. Right, that's just going to install all the packages and dependencies for Jupyter to run. Again, it's going to install it in this directory, not in your main system. Okay? Jupyter's this little IDE, this little web IDE. So, say for instance, so you could run your Python code in particular. All right?
Not really needed.
Not really needed. You could do it on the run it on the command line on the read, evaluate, print loop, the RIPL. Right? Or if you want to run it in Docker, I don't know how many of you guys are Docker admins or anything, you can just run those two Docker lines right there, and you'll have it installed right there on your system as well. Okay? Next. All right. Learn Python. You can learn Python for free. I learned Python for free. Didn't go to school. Didn't do anything. All right. A lot of reading. A lot of book reading. I do recommend the Python the Hard Way by Zed Shaw. It was a really good read, and I like the statement in there where it says, just shut up and type this. and just type, and that's all you have to do is just type and learn and understand what you're actually coding in Python. All right. If you have your Miami-Dade Public Library card, if you're from Miami, you have access to lynda.com for free. They have a lot of video learning on there for Python and other programming languages. If you have if you live up here in Broward, you get your Broward Library card and your NSU e-card, and you can log into lynda.com again for free.
Palm Beach County also.
Palm Beach County as well. All right. So a lot of the examples I took out from the W3 school Python /Python and Python tutorial points. All right. They have really good documentation on actual structures of data and loops if you run into a little bind. All right. Also, built-in documentation and Google. Okay. Remember, you can't forget the Google out there. All right. All right. A little talk about IDEs. All right. You don't need an IDE to write Python code, obviously. It makes it convenient to have syntax highlighting and stuff like that. But this is not something that you're going to compile. You're going to just go ahead, open up a text editor like Atom or Eclipse, which is an IDE. But if you want that syntax highlighted, you could go to pydev.org. Vim and PyCharm, those are also free IDEs. Or Vim is just a command line text editor. If you're going to go through the command line, the hard way, there's a couple of little things that you can add to your Vim RC, which is like your low startup, like syntax highlighting and file type plugin indent, right? So that when you hit, so that it understands what program you are based on the file extension, and give you some syntax highlighting. All right, and also it sets the smart indents and tabs. We have to set the smart indents and tabs in Python because in Python, white space is very significant. Okay, before you start typing and you start hitting tab and trying to make your code all nice and pretty, where it's supposed to be, you might not need to put in that tab because it's just going to break your code, or put in that space. As soon as you put in that space, it's going to think that it's a code block. All right, or if you're in your for loop and everything shifts to the left, shift to the left, you're not going to be, it's going to break your loop. It doesn't understand that. It doesn't understand brackets and semicolons, all right? So you don't put semicolons and brackets in your Python code, all right? That's why it's no semicolons, no brackets, no problems, yeah. So that's a person that's been coding in Perl and in Bash for like 3 years. It's like a habit to put in brackets. All right. So you're going to need a colon at the end of your for loops, try blocks, when you're defining a function for your function definitions or classes. One thing to know, I'm not going over classes. That's a little bit more of a higher level or intermediate class for Python. It gets really long. All right. So for an example of a quick Python code on what the indent means, let's say for instance for I in range 5, this basically means count from 0 to 5, this little command here, and then replace that with the I. So for every time you're iterating through your loop, you're going to print the number, okay? And then you're going to go back out of your indent and then hit enter, and then it should run your code. All right? This is just for visualizations that you're unindenting here. All right? So colon, you're going to indent, and then when you want to break out of your loop, you unindent. All right? Comments. All right, so we like to document our code. We need to put in comments. To put in a comment, similar to HTML, it's a hashtag, right? Thing. HTML is hashtag, right? Or pound sign. So there's no multi-line comments, all right? Doc strings are for documentation. If you put in a doc string at the very top, it might look like a comment, but that's going to actually be imported into your Python code as __doc__, all right, as a doc string. So if you type help on your little Python script, it's going to print out that comment in there. So that's what doc screens are for. You could actually do that. It's for documenting your functions as well. So we'll get into that a little bit more in detail a little later. But if you want comments, it's a hashtag, and then just type out your comments. Basically what this example is showing you right here, oh, you can't even see the pointer, but print hello world, right? And then hashtag. It's not going to print from the hashtag on. That's just so that you have a little inline comment at the very end of that first command, right? So our first command or program, right? If you open up your Python interpreter and you just type out print hello world, you're in version Python 3 on there. So remember to put the parentheses, right, in your Python code. There's no space. It doesn't matter. You can go ahead and type that out and hit run. You should see that it will just print hello world. Right. I'll go ahead and show you guys over on this side here. Open up a new. Alright, and then if you just hit run, you got a little hello world. Alright? Hey, Python programmers. It work out good for you guys? Now, like I said, like in if you're in version 3, you're gonna want to wrap that in parentheses, right? As you can see, the parentheses works in version 2 as well as in version 3. But in version 3, you can't take out those parentheses. You actually need them. All right? This is because this. Good. All right. All right, so this is something that I wish someone would have told me a little bit really early on in learning Python. All right, and I hope you guys take this as a good takeaway. Like, there's built-in methods in Python. All right, and to actually see those methods, you would use the dir, open and close parentheses, right? And you'll see that you could see a couple methods right there in the main in Python. All right, if you want to see all of your callables and all of your other methods that are in Python, you'll go ahead and do it to the built-ins callable. All right, so this is __ built-ins, and you'll see a bunch of commands that you can run inside Python in your interpreter. All right. So if we go ahead and type in dir, right, again. Wow. It didn't. It always turns out that it doesn't work in live, right?
Yeah, but someone got it.
All right, so that's what I want to show you.
How do you clear the shell? If you have like you try to clear.
Oh, it doesn't there. Yeah, you just close and reopen. All right. Commands you need to close the ripple and then open it up again. All right. So right here we can see like I don't know why it wasn't working in the last one. Should have worked. But let's see. Yeah, this should work. All right. But huh? Yeah, but it didn't work. I tried it. Yeah, I tried it.
For me, that's 3 or 4, 2 or 3.
2. It's weird that it didn't print it, but. Oh, okay. 1 second. 1 second. All right. Sorry. I don't know. I hit something and it didn't put. It wasn't running any code because of the. It was like a blank line. It was just a blank. It was like a blank comment line. But go ahead. But there you go. So as you can see here, we got a couple of it. We got built-ins and docs, right? So this is because there's a lot more on this print because it's loading up a lot more defaults and things because of the interface and the IDE, right? But if we go back to the command line, you can see we only have a couple built-ins, docs, named, and package, right? So if we go ahead and enter the built-ins, right? Might have to just, yeah, that should be enough, right? You can see we have a ton of commands here. So the one things I want you to understand is like some of the commands that you're going to want to run here are basically from down here, all right? So after the underscores, you're going to have your adds, your any, your apply, the bin, bool, and data types for your data types. These are actual commands that you can run against in Python without loading anything. All right. So like sum and string and xrange and vars and Unicode and slice. Those are the like actual callable commands that you're going to run. All right. So as you can see here, we have len and list and hex. All right. Those are some important. Those are when you're working with strings and data, especially in a CTF or anything like that, and you need to convert something. You're going to run those types of commands to actually find out the length of a list, length of a string. All right, it'll return basically a number of the length of characters or the length of items in a list. Okay, and you could find out more about these commands. Basically, if you type the help and then put in parentheses, right, and say, I want to know about len, right? You're going to have to put that in as a string, right, with quotes. And it'll basically bring up the help and tell you about the actual function. All right? So you give it's telling you, you give it an object, it's going to give you an integer. All right, what the integer is, it could be the length of the string characters within the string. If you provided a string object, if you provided a list, it's going to give you the length of the items inside the list. Okay? Yeah.
Is there ever a situation in Python where a function could be the same? It could be two functions, the same name, different names, different packages.
Yeah, if you run into that, you have to remember that we'll get into that. Keep that in the back of your head. All right, so go ahead and quit. All right, back here. All right, so say for instance, like next, don't worry about the import. This is just to understand about importing additional features into your Python code. All right. All right, little troubleshooting steps on when you're writing code. Print often. Always print often. If you're having a problem, try to find out where that code is. If you're passing in data from one object to another, find out what that data is by printing it out and make sure, does it look right? Why is it saying I have a space or a blank character in there? Maybe you have to slice that last character out to get your function to work right. So always try to print often when you're working on it. If you're writing an actual script and you need to put in some more find out why is it not working for a particular instance, you'll be able to see, there's other things in there, but you'll be able to add in a switch for debugging or be a little bit more verbose to print out sections of code or print out strings or lists as you're running through as your code runs, basically. All right? Read out any errors. Right? There's always going to be something. Errors are pretty verbose in Python, and it'll give you a little bit more of a direct guidance and direction on where the errors are. All right? And for variable names, all right, there's a couple of rules to consider about variable names. Main rule is it has to start with a letter. It can't start with numbers. All right? Alphanumeric. Try to give your variables meaning when you're setting the variable names. Don't be like me. I, A, B, C. Those are just examples. When you're actually writing Python code, try to be verbose. Okay, this variable is a city. Capital C, lowercase ity, right? Or state, capital S, and then spell it out. If it's something that's you have to be more descriptive, try to use camel case. Don't use the underscore often. You put an underscore in front. That's pretty significant in Python. That's gonna may treat it something different. All right, like underscore init underscore. Function is pretty significant in Python. All right. Use camel case in your age or all caps or lowercase. Be a little bit understanding about your Python code and your variable names. All right.
Question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between method and function?
Huh? Method is a function, but I think it's built from within a class, right? So methods, right? Functions are just created at the actual structure level, at the script level, and then when you call an object, instantiate a class, all of the functions within that class are methods of that instantiation.
So the function to me kind of like a line where the method is against right built in.
It's going to be,
It's
it's instantiated. Yeah. All right, data types. All right, so there's a bunch of different data types. If you actually type all this out, it actually works before the dash. All right. So bool. So bool, obviously it's bool. It's either true, false, one or zero, or anything greater than 1 is anything greater than 0 is true in Python. So I believe should be. All right. And then if you get or negative 0. False is always 0. Negative 1 is true. Positive 1 is true. All right. So string, anything in quotes, all right, is a string. So equal something equals anything in quotes or single quotes. They're both the same. All right. One is actually treated a little bit more stricter. There's strong quotes versus weak quotes. All right. Maybe in a different language. I have to double check that in Python. But just remember, strings are quoted. All right. Numbers are integers without any quotations. And there's also complex numbers. Say like 5j. That would be like an imaginary number. I guess square root of a negative number is imaginary in math. So that would be the 5j. All right. So, and then you have float and complex is the 5J. All right. So numbers are basically when they're assigned, they're assigned a particular data type, a float or int or complex. All right. You don't have to case it as cast it as an int or a float or a complex. It's automatic. Python would say, this looks like an integer because it doesn't have a dot. So, and it could be within, I think, 64 or an infinity number of non-decimal digits, right? Float is anything with a dot. So, anything with a decimal point. All right. So if Python sees that you're creating a number dot decimal something, it's going to assign it the type of float. All right. Complex, I don't think I ever used a complex integer. never got to go into it. But a list. All right. So, important thing to understand: lists are square when they're created or assigned. Use the square brackets. All right, and then tuples are parentheses. All right, but when you actually print it out, you're going to see that it uses parentheses for your list. But you have to understand the difference between list and tuple. A tuple is immutable, right? You can't delete the items within the list. You can add to the list, but those items are going to be there for as long as your program is running. Okay. And a list, you can actually remove the items from the list. You can edit the items from the list. You can pop them off, or append to the list, or edit the item within that list. All right. A set is also a list, huh?
It's a bad example because you have food twice.
That's the example. That is the example. So if you actually typed out what set does, and you actually print out that set, you're only going to see foo once. But it's not going to throw back an error at you, okay? Because that's what a set is supposed to do. So it's going to give you a unique list of all the items inside that set, all right? So say, for instance, foo, bar, foo, you're going to get foo and bar. That's it. You're not going to get foo, bar, foo. If you do that in the list, you're going to get foo, bar, foo as well, okay? So that's a good way to get a good comparison of items. Say, for instance, IP addresses. You have multiple IP addresses that are communicating to you at the same time, and you just want a unique set of IPs. You add those to the list, and then you'll be removing the IPs out of that set. All right? Yes.
Zero index means that the index starts at 0.
Yes. Yes. Zero index means that the index does start at 0, and when you call out the item within that list, you have to think about, okay, start 0 index. Starting at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 is a number. Yes.
So in those examples, foo is at 0 and bars at 1.
Yes. Foo is at 0, bars at 1. And the same for in the tuple.
The length is 2.
And length is 2. So when you actually go length, you actually might have to do length minus 1 to actually get length 2. But you don't have to worry about that when you're actually going through a for loop and you iterate through it. It'll just say, okay, there's only 2 items in the list. I'm not going to go out of bounds in the for loop. All right? Dictionary, think about either key value pair. Yes? You have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about sets. So let's say we're iterating over that set, will it also iterate or take into account that we need this? So we have things in there, it won't iterate on the code.
It's not going to, it doesn't append to it. It hashes it, and then it appends to the list. So it's going to say, okay, there's 2 items with that same item inside. There's already an item with that hash inside the list already.
So inside the set, can you say some 0, some 1? Is it order within the set?
There's no order within the set. Think of a set as a dictionary, but it's not. It's like a hash. It's not going to order. It doesn't give you indexing.
So you should just say it's something inside of the set.
Yes. Yeah.
Why would you ever use a set over a list?
If you want to add to, like, if you have a list that has multiple names of the same thing, you only want a unique list of that.
So basically distinct with
Yeah, it's a way of getting distinct items or unique items out of the list. So say for instance you have like in the example, you have a list of IP addresses, and there's obviously duplicate IP addresses that did a communication to you, and you want to get a unique list of duplicate IP addresses and get rid of all the unique ones. You can add your list to a set, and it'll give you just the unique items. All right, pretty quickly too. So say you have that list in Python, all of the communications in there, right? You say, okay, create set. You could case typecast. Typecast a variable, right? So as unique IP addresses, typecast and set, all right? And then say your set list name equals the list, and that copies over the list over. So let me get into dictionaries. Dictionaries are basically key value pairs of items, right? Or in English, word definition, right? Also, if you're in a different way of thinking about it, all right? As a hash, and in Perl it's hash, right? And C, I guess I don't program in C, so I don't know C. I see you, but I don't program in C. But yeah, it's a hash table, and you could basically it means key value pair. So you call the key for within the set within the dictionary, it's going to give you the definition or the value, right? All right, strings. So basically, like I said, anything in quotes or in single quotes is a string. All right. Strings have in Python have a little unique, since it's basic. Since in memory it thinks of a string as as an array of single characters, right? So you could actually slice based on the string. I can't see an example of this in Bash or in Perl, but you could, if you did say for instance month one, index 1, you get the U out of the string, okay? And if I touch the cables on that side, the screen's going to go out. And if you go into month and then say from 2 to 4, you're going to get the LY, right? So there's basically substrings from within Python that's built into it. So you don't have to actually go, how would I do that in Bash? Okay. How would you do that in Bash? Huh? Yeah, use cut and say, I only want the first 2 characters. But in Python, you just say, okay, I just want between 2 and 4. And you got your 2 characters.
You can also leave out a number and get starting from or ending.
Yeah. Well, calm down. Calm down, brother. All right? So we got some substrings here. So, and there's a lot more to do with substrings. So, and this is what I want to get to. I can't cover every little nuancey thing within Python in a 1.5 hour one-on-one course, right? But that's why I want to give you that key takeaway of using that dir function to actually dir month. And you can see all of the other features within Python that you could do within a particular string. So, just as we did here, right? So something equals foo, right? If I do dir ASDF, right? You can see we have a lot of other little commands here, like strip, title case. So say if I had names, and I know that I want everything's in lowercase, right? I want title case your first name. So I could just say variable dot title. Yeah. So ASDF dot TIT only. All right. Jeez. All right. And you need the parentheses. All right. So some of these are functions within the actual variable. All right. So say for instance, if you wanted to so if I did foo, right, and I did title, right, it's gonna lower the other two letters down. So it's gonna capitalize and lowercase the rest of the characters within the sentence. All right, within the string. Where do you see capitalize? Does the same. So if you want to understand what this actually does, all right, if you go help, all right, and then you could go all right. So this is like the little thing I want to make sure that I get the point across is how to get the help and how to get a list of your methods. All right. So it makes your programming a lot easier if you know what you're trying to look for. All right. Yeah. All right. So string formatting. All right. So say for instance we have hello. There's a pretty good example, right? Hello. We got two variables, hello and then world, and we want to put them together. So we have %s, basically for a string, or if you have a D for digit, or R for raw, actually puts it in quotes if you print it out. You can try it. All right. So what's this one going to do for us? The first one. If we just look at it, not everyone at the same time. It's going to print out hello. All right. So we call it out basically with a modulus or a parenthesis sign and then a. All right. If we need to do multiple items, we have to put that in a little list within parentheses. All right, and comma separated list.
Wait, so the %s sign.
So it's going to do it in order, right? So S is going to be A, and this S is going to be B.
The key is that the reason why you're doing this, right, is because sometimes you have a variable assigned somewhere, and you want to print out that variable. So inside of the text, right, you see how you're saying print, we are doing better than %s. So %s is a representation of a variable that you're going to fill at the end, right? So that's called string formatting.
Yeah, it just calls that variable.
Correct. And prints it inside of that string.
Okay.
Correct. All right. So basically, it's going to say, okay, this has to be a string. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's going to have to be a string because we're assigning the s. All right. If you did this as an integer or as a digit, it's going to throw back an error at you, so because it's different. It's not a number. Basically, it's type. All right. Here, we can do it this way. It doesn't. Pretty sure it's not going to throw that error because we're not saying digit or string here. So we go hello world here with the open and curly braces, and you have to remember your order, right? Because however this order has to be. If you put B here and A here, it's going to say world hello. All right? Yeah.
Also, an easy way to remember the order is inside of those curly braces, you can assign it an index, right? So you can do 0 and 1.
Mm-hmm.
So 0 would be A and 1 would be B.
Hey, that'd be good. See, I didn't know that. Thank you. So this would be 0 and this would be 1, and this would make sure. So if I put 1 here and 0 here, it would be BA. All right.
So there you're treating a literal string as an object. And you're calling that method, that object, that string.
Yeah. So this is the
And
dot
the
format
literal
method.
string is actually an object.
Yeah.
Yep.
Without
So the first curly bracket calls the first variable A, and the second curly bracket calls B, right?
It
Yeah.
is strict to right. That's what makes it about it. It's yep.
We're all good? Any other questions? All right. The other thing, little tricks. These are pretty good. Is a pretty good list of things to do with a list. All right. So if we have a list, all right. Say my favorite foods: burgers, hot dogs, and tacos. All right. Junk. We could say we want to copy that list to another variable. Say, for instance, A. We could use the copy method, or we could use a slicing method with the colon. And it's a little bit more cryptic, but you have to understand that this is string splicing, right? But this is also list splicing. So, where you actually have a method of a copy method, right, to copy the actual contents of the list to another variable, right? This slice is getting anything from the beginning of the list to the end of the list, right? And say if we wanted to just get from taco to pizza, we could just say one to the other side of the list, right? Basically on indexing. So if you want to get part of a list and assign it to another variable, you can use one colon, and then I'll just get from index 1 to index 2, basically on our list. So it'll get to the end of the list, right? This is to get from the end of the list backwards, reverse indexing, right? So say I want to get if I want to get the last item of the list, that would be -1, all right? If I want to get the last 2 items of the list, I'll go to all the way up to -2, okay? But you have to know how many items you have in the list to go backwards. If you're going to go backwards, copy the list in reverse. All right. So be careful with I wouldn't go past -1 to only get the last item of the list. If you have to keep going backwards, there's other methods like the pop method. Will pop always will remove the element from the list. It removes the element from the list, but returns you that element before removing it. So you're assigning that element to whatever next pass of your item, wherever your program is. Okay? Before you actually remove it. So you're assigning a variable, but popping it off of the list. And then when you pop it in the list again, you're getting the next item off of the list. All right? So, for instance, length of the list gets you the length of that list with the len function, all right? And this is basically from a built-in callable. So we're not actually doing anything that's built into the list method. We're actually calling a method calling a method and then providing the list as a variable within that method, all right? Like a function. So right here we have a list. Right, and we're creating a list, right? But we're multiplying it by 3, right? So what are we doing here in this example? We're saying hi 3 times within the list. So it's going to be hi, hi, hi. The list is going to say hi 3 times, all right? And then here we're O equals N plus foods. Or what are we doing here? Yeah, so we're concatenating 2 lists together. List does have an append function, but that appends to the list. We're creating a new list, concatenating 2 lists together.
So why would I do that one versus the list not append?
Well, because I want to preserve foods or preserve the first list, right, in memory. So unless you don't have anything to do with else with the list, you don't need to append to the list. But you could always, if you need to create a new list, you're just taking up a little memory, right? Depends on how big your list is. So it could be So this will create a new list of the two items together, concatenated together, or you could do .append n, right, to append hi to the list. All right? So there's a lot of different methods here. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of all these little things. All right, and there's so how do we remove the first element from the list? Well, that removes the last element.
Does the pop receive any parameters?
You dot remove.
Nope. Oh, you could do pop 0, right? It does take parameters. Sorry. Yeah, pop 0. Basically, you're popping off the first item of the list. Pop by default removes the last item, but you can specify which item of the list that you want to remove. So pop 0. I don't have any prizes. But there's much more you can do. Obviously, there are foods, and then help the actual food. Whatever method you want to do to get a little bit more instructions within Python, right? All right, there's assignment operators, right? So if you're going through creating assignments, it's basically the equal sign. Say, for instance, if you're iterating or counting or wanting to add something to an item, it's basically x equal. This is the example, but this is what you want to do. This is what it actually means. So plus equal, all right? So you're going to x, whatever x is, plus equal 3. So 8, all right? Our variable is going to be 8 on this example, all right? X plus minus equal 3, we're decrementing 3 times 2. Here, 125, or no, 15, 75, right? 3 times 20. No, this, 5 times 15, 3, 15, right? Here, and then we got 2, right? Because 2 goes into 3, 5 goes into 1. I'm getting lost here in my talking to you
You
guys.
claim to be a math guy.
Yeah. All right, but here we have whatever the assignment is divided by 3, right? It's going to return here. All right, and then over here we have exponents, exponentiation. So this will be 125. All right. This is floor division. This is modulus. Basically, modulus is the remainder of your division. So whatever the remainder is, it's going to be that. Obviously, there's arithmetic functions as well. This was assignments. So this is assigning the left argument, whatever this is. All right. There's your short list of arithmetic operators. You have your addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and the symbols that they represent in Python. Comparison operators. So say, for instance, if you're doing your if statements and for loop if statements, you have your double equals for equality, your not equal, your greater than, less than, or greater than equal to, less than equal to. All right? Operators. Yeah.
Is not.
That is and. So if you want to wrap these around in parentheses, or wrap this section around in parentheses, and then the and keyword will divide these two, so that whatever those two are, you're actually logically binding them together. So one has to be the other, one and this one, right? Or if one of the statements is true, or both of these statements are true, right? Then you have the not, so you can not and then wrap them in parentheses, this and this, right? Obviously, returns the reverse. So if this is 5 is great, x less than 5 and x greater than 10, less than 10. Yeah.
So 6 would
Bang.
be false.
It's not equal. All right. Then there's identity and membership. So is for is identity, and then membership is with the in keyword. All right. So if you were comparing two variables together and you want to say, is this variable on the left is the same as the right? And then you could say, you could use the is function instead of the equal, right? And if it's, you have equality, right? But then you have, like, is this type of string and this type of string, right? Or is this type number or is this type string? And then you have a number within a string. You can say, this isn't this, right? So you have it a little. I know I'm probably clobbering this a little bit too bad. I don't really use is much. But in the in function, you gotta say, like, if one object is in an dictionary, right? It works for sets, dictionaries, and lists. Lists, yeah. So is apple in my list of foods? No, it's too healthy. All right. So those are just membership.
You can say if a string is in a list.
You can see if a string is in a
You can
list.
do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Not included.
Yes. So right here is there's if else and is else and if else right statements, right? So if b is greater than 5, right? You can do one line, right? It looks all right. If I would do this only if it's a very short command, right? It's hard. It gets hard to read if this starts scrolling up through pages, right? So you want to make sure that you're at the colon. You can break it off to the second line and print, right? You can't do this and then put an else over here. It's not going to work. If it starts getting multiple depths, doing that one-liner doesn't work. So go ahead and try to stay in the practice of doing it in your multi-line and trying to indent and doing your indentations. So this is a basic if statement, right? B is a list, and A is a string that you want to know that if it's in that list. All right, or it could be a number, and could be a number within your inside your numbers a list of numbers, right? Yeah.
A and B will return true.
Yes.
So I don't really need
Equal true? No.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah, you don't need the equal true. I know I had that in there. I was supposed to take it out. I was like, I was looking for other things inside there. I was going through it like 10 or... I've been going through this deck of slides for like a week, making sure that if there was any typos and stuff.
It's not a typo, it's just...
Yeah, it's not necessary.
Yeah,
It'll work either way, because this is gonna return true, and then you're just saying equal true. If it's false, it's not gonna go past, and then it's just gonna go here. All right? But then what am I doing here? I'm not doing an assignment. Huh? Yeah, he's doing a double check.
Let's CPU side.
Yeah.
If you want to think about that, right?
Yeah.
Not that people think of that anymore.
I know I don't. Print. Okay, we're doing a concatenation here, right? So this print, we're printing, and if you notice why this is in Python 3 because I put in parentheses instead of in quotes, or you don't need the parentheses in Python 2, but in here I put in Python 3, right? So we're saying print C, the variable is C, right? And then we're concatenating is in D, right? So this is just basically how A, comma, is in D, is in B, right? So this is just another example of some print. Like the comma here is multiple
add a space.
parameters, yes, correct, within the print function. Okay? So and you can have unlimited parameters within print as well. You can do comma, 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 comma.
Adds a space every time you add a parameter.
Yeah, it does.
Cute to note. Is there going to have two spaces?
Yeah, I did have two spaces. But not in the concatenation.
No,
And I did give you all these slides, so you can actually copy and paste this code section into your slide. I made sure I tried to format it as much and tried to get it's in Consola, so it's easy to read, and so it should just copy and paste pretty well into your console. All right, modules, right? So you can't just do everything from the base, just without adding additional functions. So, say for instance, like in C, you have include, right? You have include and include headers, and in Perl you have modules, and just module on the module name, right? It's something like that. I have to look at some Perl code. But in Python, it's the import function, right? So we're going to say import OS, all right? Modules give us, modules are basically Python scripts, right? That are structured. So anything that's inside that script is going to be included. And normally what they include is basically additional functions, additional classes, additional variables even, right? To the actual, to the package name, right? The actual structure of the package is a little bit more advanced, but just understand that whatever you're importing as, you have to keep either the same namespacing, all right? So, for instance, there's an item called path, right? You have to append the os.path, or if you're going to import, there is additional keywords like import os as something.
You don't want to type os.path, you from os import path.
Yes. Yeah, but that'll just bring in path.
Correct.
Right. But if there was already another path, you might have name column, right?
Is OS an actual module?
Yes. OS is an actual module.
Is it OS functions?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Environmental variables.
environmental variables, system, like what you need sys. There's OS and then there's sys, right? So there's system functions, right? So if you want to import like arguments, first you import sys and then you could go through args, dot arguments, okay? So there's no argument within Python at the base level, at the actual Python, without importing sys, right, to get the system argument. Yeah, these are standard modules. These are going to be inside your base directory, right? Trying to think about leaving anything off. Any other questions, real quick, about modules, or importing a module? No. Modules. Just remember, the modules provide extra functionality, like in another programming language. Like in Perl, you're going to import modules, or in C, you're going to include headers or include other modules. All right. Loops. All right. So on this side, I have a for loop. On this side, I have a while loop. Okay. So basically, we're going to have a list or a range, a list of some sort to iterate through. It has to be iterable. Right. So say, for instance, index is iterable based on heap on all sets, and everything else is iterable as well. But you're going to go through with it. List in particular, it has a 0 index, so it's going to be in that same order as index, right? In a dictionary, it's going to be random order, but obviously it's going to run through the dictionary as well if you have a key-value pair. All right, I'm going to show you more of that in the next a couple of slides down. Right, but for instance, so your list of colors, red, white, and blue for X in color. Right, you're going to print the color, basically, and then you're going to untab it then. If you're in the RIPL, you can hit enter, enter, and it's just going to run through your list. All right. Same as for pets, right? Here I'm showing you how to break out of the list. So if x equals cats, we're gonna break, stop running the loop. All right, so this should only print dog and then stop at cat. It's not gonna print cat. All right. So for if x is greater than 3, we're gonna continue to the next one. We're not gonna print 3 on this one.
So I must have that white space mean begin end. I cannot have a begin end even if I want to. I have to have the white space.
You have to tab indeed. Yes.
The white space is very important.
It's very significant. So say for instance colon, and then we have a tab, and then we have our if statement and a colon, and then we have 2 tabs. All right, and then we're going to print here. And then we're doing our check, continue, and we're going to print.
So
All right.
the print X is inside the begin of the 4, not inside the begin of the.
I think that's going to break.
So yeah, the print X is inside the 4, not inside the X.
So it's going to print x less than 3. So it's going to print 1. It's going to print 0, 2, 3, 0, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5.
It's not going to print 3.
Well, continue sends it back to the 4, right?
Yeah, continue sends it back to the 4.
It's all the code below it.
It's not going to print
Correct.
the normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to see that
Uh-huh.
begin end.
Oh, no, it's X greater than 3. So it's only going to print 1 time.
Wow, there's 18 people watching.
In the computing text, it says you say the line has
At first load of PA.
Yeah.
So you have 2 for. Oh, this
Yeah,
is
for-
it's 0. It's 0 indexes. So
I would copy and paste it, but it just broke me out. So you guys copy and paste it and try running the code. But on the while loops here, so for instance on while loops here, we have to have an iterable, just an iterable in the beginning or a condition in the beginning, and then change the condition as we're running through the while loop. All right. So say for instance if this was a ping or something, and you want to know when it's something not reachable or something, you would set something, and then run your test, see if your test changes the conditional, and then if it didn't change it, it'll continue to run through it, right? Or in this case, when x is greater than, while I is less than 6, print I, and then we're incrementing I to 6. Right now we're going to stop printing. All right, and then this one it says if I equals 3, break, and then this is going to stop the loop. Okay? And any questions on your on loops? No? All right, so raw input. So say for instance we have to get some command input back, or some examples of, or say for instance our script is asking for our name, or we need to tell our script to stop, wait for some input, hit enter, and then continue running the script. That function is basically with raw input. This one. All right. Don't be. There is an input function in Python 2. From the documentation I was reading, it has some security vulnerability, and that's why it's recommended to use raw input. All right. So that's why there's raw input. That vulnerability has been fixed up in version 3, so you go back to using input. All right. But so say for instance, name equals raw input. This is going to wait for a return character, all right, and then continue. Okay. There is other arguments or settings can take multiple lines, right? So if you would say for instance, if you wanted to put in a multi-line input, you would set this to wait for Control D, right? And then you would tell it to stop capturing raw input until Control D is hit to an interrupt is hit. All right. So for variables, say for instance, if you run Python my script ABC, right, and you need to import sys to get the list of the variables of arguments. Yes, sorry, variable, right? So import sys prints script name. 0 is going to be the script name, right? The name of the argument of the script name, and then variable 2, new line. 0, 1. 0 is the script name. 1, 2 is going to be B. All right. All right. You can do the same thing with the len function to get the number of variables, right? Arguments. Right. And then prints arg string in the argument. So say, for instance, if you have a number as an argument, you're going to want to probably put that within the string parameter. Convert your number into strings if you need to concatenate two different types of strings and digits together, right? I'm not doing concatenation here. I'm doing the comma, so for a different argument. So the arguments are, and this is basically getting the list of the arguments, right? Yeah, it's gonna print out the list, a string representation of the list of the argument set. Working with files. Wow. Damn, we're coming a long way. So you don't need to import anything to work with files. There's nothing new. You can do this based on with Python by itself. No need to import system or anything like that, unless you need to get path or something like that. Then you might need to import sys. But as long as you know the path of the file name, it'll work. Okay. So we're gonna create a file handle, and normally I call it FH for file handle, right? And I do open the file name, and then there's a couple of options here, right? So there's different modes. There's the R and T. T is default, right? So you don't need to include the T. It is the read function, right? In read mode, and you don't even need to include that as well, because read is the default as well. So by default, you're going to read text. Okay. To print the whole file, you can do the read method, and that prints out the whole file in general, the whole file entirely. If you just want to print different characters, you just put in the list of characters, right? I'm thinking read line reads the last line of the file, right? And then if you want to read through the loops of the file, for X and FH, this loops through the lines from the top to the bottom of the file. Yeah. This for loop? It's line by line.
Does that would mean that the file handler read in each line as a list? So he knows it's a file handler.
This one gets the next line, right? As it's reading through the line, it gets next, and then strip, right? All right, so writing a file is a little bit different, right? Yes?
If you were to read the whole file, is there like a length of the range, or can you choose a while? Every line is file.
Read the whole, read.
Okay.
Print out the whole file.
I'm saying like you do every line like it has at the bottom. Capital J. Like instead of just doing the first two lines, you want to iterate every line.
Oh, it's this one.
Alright, okay. Okay, got it.
All right. All right, so writing a file. Sometimes you have to write a file in Python. So you get create your string however you want. You can add new lines to your lines, add tabs, right? And then here's one line. It's just
Correct. Yeah, you're missing quotes on the open. Right text.
yeah. I need the quotes. Right. Yeah, this does need quotes. So we're gonna get the text right, and then we're gonna add with the write function. We're gonna just write our string into the file, and then close the file. Right? There's a new method as well. It's called with. So I think it's
With variable name open.
with variable name open. Yeah. You have to do a little research, but with the with, it includes the close. Yeah, it just basically takes away the close. If you have good practice in closing your files, you should. The with is a little bit extra in case you're lazy programmer.
The danger of the close, right? If you put the close later on in your script, is if for whatever reason your script crashes before you reach the close, you risk the file
Being contaminated,
correct.
being corrupt.
Yep.
Right. All right. So I should have included the with, but yeah, it does have to close. Functions block. What a function is, basically it's a block of code that runs when you call it. So say for instance you're pre-programming something. Wow, there is a lot of people here. It's like moved all over to this side. There's a lot of people. So it's basically a block of code that's gonna run when you call it. So all right. So for instance, you create a function that just wants to print something. You go ahead, use the def keyword, the name of your function, then parentheses, and then a colon. Okay. You're gonna go ahead and create the indent, and then put in your block of code, and then unindent to get back into your main section of code. All right. Then you get anywhere anywhere in your code, you would run your function. You don't need to put your code. I want to say that it doesn't matter where you put your code and where you call your code. I want to say it doesn't matter, right? Because it's got to be processed, right? So it runs. Your script's going to run through twice. It's going to capture all of your function definitions, load that into memory, and then run your code again. All right. So your functions could be all the way at the bottom. Normally, I loaded all of my functions towards the bottom, and then I put like another section of code for another section of code up here. But you could.
It's in classes. Like when you call a class, you might call a function before the function definition happens.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter, but normally you want to be a good programmer. Put your functions on top or your imports and stuff, and then call them. Yeah, and always use the def key. You always need to use the def for function.
Correct.
To define a function, yes.
And you can return any value. You don't have to declare what kind of value you're going to return.
Oh, right here.
You don't even have to return if you don't want to.
Yeah, you could see right here, I'm not returning, I'm just printing. This is going to print something and that's it. Alright? If you want to include parameters, right? So say this function, my param, right? You're actually creating your parameter name in the function right here. Alright? You're going to print out the parameter, and then here's the parameter is going to be a string. Okay? So my param is basically normally you would have to iterate through your list of parameters and then provide them with value names, right? Or variable names. Right here, you're already giving it the variable name when you call your function. And then you're referencing it here, basically with commas.
You don't pass variables or parameters by reference.
I don't know. So,
So I send you a parameter and you want to change it inside the function.
yeah.
But you're not in the return.
Yeah, and then you can return. then you return the parameter, or
Yeah, like, I don't know.
or the yeah.
I didn't catch the question, but so in the function, you can send it a parameter. You can work with the parameter inside the function, and then return the worked on parameter.
You know how you send parameters by reference versus
Yeah,
by value?
Are you talking about dereferencing? To dereference the memory
So
space
when you
address?
send- In most languages, when you send a parameter by reference, if anything happens to that parameter inside that function, it happens outside the function.
Oh, global. You mean globally? Yeah, you're global. No, say for instance, if you put in a variable here, not a string. This is a string, right? And I passing it in here. It's copying this string and putting it into this parameter.
So I sent three numbers,
Yeah,
three variables,
three variables.
A, B, and C.
ABC.
When I get to that function inside the function, say B equals something else.
You're not changing
When I
the
come
function
back out of the
outside.
function,
You're not changing
it
the
doesn't
outside.
change that.
Correct.
It never does.
Right.
There's no way to do it.
I don't believe.
Unless you define it as a global variable, and then you call that global. And
Yeah,
the,
that's not.
the word would be global that you use to define it as a global variable.
That's not a parameter by reference. It's always by value.
Yeah. So say here we're going to return this function, return a plus b. Not really changing a and b. Changing a and b here in the function, right? So say if I had two variables here, c and d were two different numbers. I'm not changing the value of c and d here. I'm changing it. I'm copying c and d to a and b and then running a and b. Is this catch? I don't know. Is YouTube hearing me? Good.
I thought it would be very
All right. All right. So on documenting, right? I think that's that's as far as I go into actual. This is the last slide before I get into some questions on some CTF style questions on converting strings and stuff. So on documenting, when you're creating a function, right? You could put in documentation into your script, basically with the doc strings here, right? So say when you say help my function, it's gonna give you your documentation. And so this is like if you're creating a section of a module that you want to have, like say your own functions and stuff for future scripts that you import your own your functions. Say for instance, Jonathan's tools. All right, I'm gonna put functions of my tools inside a script called Jonathan's tools.py. Right? I put in all of my functions in there, and then I save that file. I open up a new script. Right? I import Jonathan's tools. Right? But I forgot how a particular function works. Go back into my script and see, go through my code, or I could just open up an interpreter, type help Jonathan's tools, and it'll print out whatever dot function name, and it'll give me that string, that helpful string. That's how all the documentation is, basically. In the very beginning, like a good example of seeing some documentation, I think the RE module, the regex module, has a pretty good documentation. If you look at you'll see like your doc strings at the very top of the documentation, right? And then you'll see every function has a little doc string right after the documentation, all right? This your main doc string gets imported into docs, into the underscore docs of the function. So say, for instance, if you printed like RE, if you import RE and then you do print RE dot underscore underscore doc underscore underscore, you'll get the help function, what it says in help. All right. Now,
Figured it out, bro.
all right. So, are you guys already doing the questions?
Yeah.
All right. So anyone? So normally when we're doing CTFs, we have like we get questions during CTFs, right? That are basically decode this or what's the message, and this is a similar style question. Just by looking at it, what do we think that this is?
Caesar cipher.
Caesar cipher. Yeah. Caesar cipher. Yeah, rotated characters. Right? So just thinking about it, how would we do this with Python? Like if we had this. Huh? Anyone?
You say like strings of 0 plus 1.
One second. Do I have my? So let's see. One second. I need to pull this out. All right, so yes. Oh, it's not 13.
No, it's not 13 and it's not Caesar either. We're already corrected.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just shifted. It's rotated. It's not Caesar, but it's using.
It looks very clear to me. The coding.
No, it's route 15, dude.
It's Route 15.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Route 11.
No, it's Route 15.
It's route 15.
For us, we work with Route 11.
All right. Let me just put this one up here. So, I just wanted to get you guys' brains thinking before I actually showed you the work. All right? Oh, don't do it yet? All right. So for instance, I have upper and lowercase letters here. Obviously, so that means I don't want to do it twice. There's methods inside string to convert everything to lowercase. And then you can convert everything to lowercase, but if you're converting something to lowercase, or you could also test to see if it's uppercase first, right? So you could say, there's tests inside strings to say, is upper, or it is lower, right? So you would have this as a string, right? And then you would have another string of your alphabet, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, right? So you have 0 index there. So A is 0, E is 2, B is 1, and so on, right? So this is just how I do it. I would go in and say, on character 1, for I in this, right? Go through a loop and then say, all right. I would have to make a transformation, all right? A load decoder, right? So I would need another string of the alphabet, but just shifted, right? So I could use slicing, right, or substrings, colon 15, and then 15 colon blank, and then colon blank 15, and then swap them around, in a string, and then that'll give me my offsets, right? So and then that'll let you convert that back into this. Just let me just help you out.
Just lowercase all of it, convert it to ASCII, and then add it up all of it.
Well, but you want to preserve the capitals, right? Obviously,
It's written in English text. I mean, that's not an assumption you can make.
yeah, you can make it into assumption that it's going to be the same thing, right? Just capitalize the character.
Again, you keep track of where the capitals were. So to get it just it's a readable text,
Yes.
just convert it to lowercase. In ASCII, it's going to start with say 65 to whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Convert them all to ASCII. You can add one to each one.
Mm-hmm.
Just you're walking them up, right?
Yeah, and walking it and walk it around. Yeah.
And then just walk them all, convert them back to text, print them out.
Yeah, try to rotate each letter. You convert it to the alphabet.
Hmm?
I think one, I don't know if he's done it, but you convert it to
Hex.
and then you convert back to string.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Zero, six, five.
So if A is like 32,
It's like
I think in ASCII it's in alphabetical. So I mean in
it's like
in the ASCII character.
plus, you'd
Huh?
be able to add, you'd be like character, and you can add the character, and then you change the character.
We have a function that we're giving
To get the actual value.
There's the
The number is greater than 26.
ASCII value of a character is the ordinal value. Yeah. You could do a hex and get the hex value, and then you could also get the ordinal value of a character. Yeah. You could do it. I did it a different way. You guys ready? All right. All right. So this is what I did. All right. You could do it as if you could do it another method, right? So from 0 to 27, right? And then I created a transform. Basically the alphabet, right? And then whatever this is. And for the iteration, I swapped them to make a little decoder, right? I'll put this in the I'll put this notes in the slide as part of the notes, okay? And say, for instance, let me get the message, the actual. Oops. All right. So basically, it's gonna run through the message, right? And then if is alpha, right? Because I have spaces in there, so I have to account for the spaces in the function as well. If it's true, I'm going to check to see if it's upper, and if that's true, I'm going to find the number of the lower of the letter of its lower equivalent, right? Its index. All right, I'm going to find where is it in the index. All right, and then I'm going to rotate. I'm going to whatever rod is blank, right? I'm going to append that number from my transforms. All right, from what it was before, right? The number. So characters is the alphabet, is the A through Z alphabet, normal. Whatever it is in the actual index of that character in lowercase, basically because our character, my alphabet is in lower, right? And then I'm going to turn it then whatever that number is, I'm going to put it in trans, basically to get the whatever my key is. All right. And since this one's upper, since I tested this in upper, I'm putting it back to upper. All right. Else, do it in, keep it in lowercase, whatever, and then else just append whatever the character was to it. If it was basically if it's not alpha, I just want to basically append that message back to it. All right, and then I'm going to print it out. Boop boop. Basically whatever iteration I was doing, dash dash, and then the message, and then new line. What I'm doing here at the end is I'm resetting the message back to blank so I can run through the message, the for loop again. All right. So if we go through the message, this gives us all of the messages, right? So if we go through, oh, it was 11. Hey. Yeah. I couldn't remember where I put it. If I did 11, 15, 20, I didn't want to do 13. 13 was too easy, so I wanted to run through. Yeah. Yeah, that's the goal is to try to also is I want to make sure that you guys are understanding what alpha characters are. So. All right, so where am I? All right, so. All right. So basically, what's this one? Right. This is hex.
First one is a lowercase 8.
Good job. He code hex in his head. Man. All right. So it's good to understand where the alpha characters are when you're doing a CTF, to understand where the alpha characters are in hex and in ASCII and in ordinal, right? So in hex, we're looking at from 41 to 60 something, if you count capitals, uppercase as well. I think 8 or maybe 80. 40, 60,
54.
60 something, yeah.
So it's 90 something.
Yeah. All right, to 90s. All right, so from the 40s to the 90s in hex is basically your alpha set. All right? What am I doing? All right, so how would we convert this back into a normal message? There is a built-in function for hex, but that gives you the character, the hex code, not the reverse. All right? That converts a letter to hex.
All right, so then it's the opposite. It's like a non-ASCII
I want you guys to try it.
non-alpha characters.
So yeah, just doing a little brainstorming, all right? Hey Seth, how you doing? I see you on YouTube. I just reading the chat. Sorry I didn't read it earlier. Hey, sorry, but I see that there's a big bowl of cookies there. Those are for everyone. We're going to continue going through just the examples. I just want to give you guys a little time to work them. I know in a little while we're probably going to go over to either Royal Pigs or what's the last place we went to? Royal Pigs? So we'll be going over to Royal Pig in about 20 minutes. Let's just keep working on your questions. If you guys have any questions.
Is anybody here going to DEF CON that is not in the channel on Slack who wants to be? You want to be in Slack? Are you on the Slack? Are you not on Slack? Okay, so just look at the plus for the channel. It's the biggest for you. So you have a channel for that. And then we're going to go to Royal Pick for anybody who's hungry. Give this guy a round of applause for his long There's not too many fun ways to make Python like super exciting.
Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed the talk. I'm going to be going over through the last two slides. It's just basically converting hex over back into ASCII and converting ordinal back into ASCII. Those are just examples of some CTF questions. Again, we're going to be going over the Royal Pig in about a half hour, so I hope you join us as well. We're probably going to take over the entire bar section. Do a little social hour. I did, yeah. I think, well, remember, one section of the code is to encode it, and the other section was to decode it. I have to decode it.
Parameter that he gave us split is a space. So you can strip or not strip, so you can split what's the return of rest of all of the characters lines and the spaces. So do that. If you have your string.
So for instance, I give you a string. So I'll give you a list of the hex here. So that you can iterate through those lists and then recreate your message. So there's a method here, character, right? You're going to feed it the integer, right? And in integer, you're going to say whatever the integer is, I, 16, base 16, right? And then this prints gives you back your original character. Okay? Same thing for ordinal. Ordinal is basically you're gonna be turn the number of the character or the ASCII number back to or Yes, basically.
So it's like just what are you talking about? Matt asked me.
See you guys on YouTube later. Hope you guys enjoyed it.